still fingering her while in her ass while he's talking to Christopher. And then they finish up, and then he wants to leave. And because, he had told her, it gives him anxiety just fucking being there. So, of course, the mother doesn't want him to go. Carrie's ready to go because Trey's called him. So, he's finally called back because Trey hadn't called back in a couple days. So, he's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And he had been, like, on the arm of, like, a pop princess, like, for most of that event. Carrie gets around. So, they go back to his place, and they have a conversation that's basically about, he's a dominant, and he's like, you're clearly a submissive. And she loses it. She's like, I'm not a submissive, how could you ever want to dominate me? You know what I've been through. Like, she just spazzes out because it's the terminology, and she doesn't like that terminology, And so then he gives her I think it was a choker, and it had like X's on it, which stood for like cross. It's really beautiful, and she loves it, but it still freaks her out because it's that whole controlling, type of thing. And when you've been where you've not had control, like, to lose control just doesn't work. So he had created like a whole room for her. He mirrored her bedroom in her apartment. The exact same thing, but he put it in his apartment, which is massive. And he's like, so whenever you feel like running, you don't have to leave. He's like, just go in this room, you lock the door, or you just go in there and I will not bother you. And I was like, wow, that's something. So then, of course they fuck, and, they fall into the role of, she falls into the role of submissive, because when he tells her, don't you come until I tell you. And that's what she does. When he tells her to come, she comes. So I'm like, you kind of already fallen into the role, sweetheart, So they go to work the next day. She gets a video from Carrie showing Magdalene and Christopher fucking. But before they did, Magdalene was like crying. And Christopher was like, hold on. Magdalene said he's not going to let go of this one. And Chris is like, he never keeps anyone around that long. And then they fuck. So Eva saw like this different expression, this facial expression on Christopher's face, and she kind of understood what Gideon was talking about. He told her, like, he's a different person. Like, his brother wants whatever he has, and he'll do anything to get it. So it's a real issue, and she kind of saw that look when he was fucking Magdalene. So after they watched the video, then Eva tells Gideon, like, she loves him. And he, of course, kisses her ferociously. And then she goes on her lunch break, and she buys a ring for him to wear to kind of show that he belongs to her. And so he thinks that she's trying to, like, back out of what she said earlier. And he's like, if you're trying to back out, I totally understand. And she's like, no, that's not what it is. It was just more so like, if you want to, show possession of me, like, I want to show possession of you too. So Eva, Carrie, and Gideon, they all eat Chinese food at her apartment. They go to sleep. They wake up, her and Gideon, in her room, of course. And she's screaming, Nathan, let go of me. Please don't do this again. And she's like, help me. Somebody help me. And then when she opens her eyes, she saw that it was Gideon on her. And so Carrie comes in because she's screaming, so he hears her. So Carrie comes in, he gets Gideon off of her, and then Eva screams at him like he's dreaming, So finally he comes to, and he's terrified of what he almost did. And so he wanted to leave, and she was like, no, don't leave, please don't leave. And she finally convinced him to stay. And so he just held her all night. So the next day when she comes home, she sees Trey coming up to the front desk, and so she's like, come out with me, so they go up. So Trey comes in, he goes to Carrie's room, and she hears shouting and screaming. So Carrie was just fucking the Tatiana girl. So I guess Trey and Carrie are supposed to be together because Trey made the comment, you promised me, Carrie, you promised me. And Carrie's like, it's not that big of a deal. So I think Tatiana left, Trey stayed, fuck Carrie. That's crazy. And so then when Carrie comes out of the room, Eva's like, that's fucked up. You just fucked him on the freshly fucked sheets from somebody else. Like, you know that man loves you. You know how he feels about you. Like, how can you do that to him? And Carrie threw it back at her. He's like, say what you want, but at least my man won't rape me. You know, I was like, fuck. Like, they were just, the jabs were going. And she's like, you're doing it again. You're ruining shit. Like, why do you always do this? And he's like, whatever, you know. So Gideon and Eva, they go to a charity event, and that's where she meets Corinne, who is the woman that we find out was actually engaged to Gideon for over a year, and she broke it off and married this rich Frenchman. So we know all this information because Magdalene had apologized. She was sitting next to, she was standing next to her. So Magdalene had apologized to Eva, and she was like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you were in love with him. And then she goes in to tell her all this stuff that's with the Corinne woman. And of course, the Corinne woman, she's all nice and sweet to her. And like, oh my God, I heard so much about you. And da 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 da. And like, Eve was fuming. Like, she didn't even know that he was engaged to someone, you know. But again, you know, they are new. But I do feel like maybe he could have snuck that in, you know. So she's freaking out. She just wants to get out of there. So Gideon grabs her because he sees her leaving, and he takes her to the car, and he tells the driver, Angus, he's like, don't stop until I tell you to. So he told Eva, you just need to be fucked so you know that I only want you until it gets through to you. And so he fucks her hard in the back, and now they have a hard session. So then they come back in the event. She's still perturbed because he's still talking to Corinne, and she could see that woman still loves him, and it does something to her. So Terry Giroux, which is Corinne's husband, comes and he puts ideas in her head about, you know, how that's the one Corinne has always wanted, and apparently that's what, you know, Cross wants too, and just like all this stuff. And so then she's like, I gotta get out of here. So she texts him, I'm not running, I just want to leave. So she comes home to Carrie having a threesome with another guy and a girl right in the living room. And she was like, get these people the fuck out of my house. And Carrie was like, don't make such a big deal about it. And then one of the participants was like, I can take care of you. And he was approaching Eva, and Gideon came out of nowhere. He knocked the shit out that guy, and Gideon yelled, you know, at Carrie, get this shit out of here. So he said something to Carrie too. No, Eva said something to Carrie about Trey again, and he's like, this has nothing to do with Trey. And so then her and Gideon go to her room. They have it out about the Corinne situation. She's like, you should have told me, you know, I shouldn't have to find out this stuff from other people. He's like, I'm sorry. He just kind of explained the whole situation with Corinne. He didn't ask Corinne to marry him. She had asked him. Didn't go through with the marriage because he doesn't sleep with women. Like, he fucks and then he goes. So they would do their thing and then he'd go in the room. And she was just like, oh my gosh. Because, you know, no one has really been able to get him to open up. So that's why another reason she broke it off and she just went with the Frenchman. But clearly it wasn't a happy life because she apparently is back now. So after they have that whole conversation, they kind of head over the next day to their place, and that's kind of where they leave it. With them like pretty much saying, we're going to tell each other the truth. We're going to be honest with each other. They're going to go to couples counseling, and really try to have a real go at this relationship, which is crazy because they've only been together a couple weeks and you already got to go to couples counseling. But it's because their communication skills suck ass. They really suck ass. So it makes sense of why they kind of need to do this. So that's where it leaves off. This story has so many more turns. I'm so excited to go over this with you guys. So the next book in the series is going to be Reflected in You. So let me know what you guys think about the first book in this Crossfire series. It really is an amazing series to me. I absolutely love this. So this has been super fun to go back and like reread these again. Let me know what you think in the comments in the discussion board. As always, thank you so much for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.